Good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's webinar from Spec Innovations, an MBSE approach to portfolio management. My name is Elizabeth Steiner, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Before we get started, I would like to go over some quick housekeeping. During the presentation, feel free to send us questions, and we will get them answered in the question and answer part of the webinar. You can also interact with us on LinkedIn through the Innoslate user group or through Twitter using the handle @Innoslate. The webinar is being recorded and we will make it available to you after the live presentation, so be sure to keep an eye out for it in your inbox. Now I'd like to introduce you to our presenter, Dr. Steve Dam. He'll be sharing with you how to use a model-based approach to maximize efficiency in your portfolio management efforts. Dr. Dam is the president and founder of Spec Innovations, as well as one of our DODAF training instructors. He has been involved with research, experiments, operations analysis, software development, systems engineering, and training for more than 40 years. He has also received an Expert Systems Engineering Professional certification from INCOSE. He is currently applying systems engineering techniques to various DoD, DOE, and commercial projects. Feel free to send Dr. Dam any questions through the LinkedIn user group or send him an email at steven.dam@specinnovations.com. And all right, we'll go ahead and let Dr. Dam take over from here.
Great, thanks, Elizabeth. I almost forgot to take it off mute. Give you a little background what we're going to do today, give you a little bit of background on us and Innoslate a little bit, because we are going to talk about how we apply model-based systems engineering to portfolio management. Of course, you got to start with what is it, because there will be people in the audience who don't know, although I suspect most of you do. And then give you a little bit of LML overview and how it relates to portfolio management and why is that important. And then talk a little about the tool that we use for that purpose. And then a little special thing for people who are interested in DoD particularly, but also I think it has some interesting implications for any organization, is about 836. And then we'll have time for walking through the tool a little bit and plenty of time for Q&A. Okay, so let's get started. So a little bit about us. We've been doing systems engineering since 1993. We've used a variety of tools over the years, and we were doing work in systems engineering, software development, training, consulting, particularly proposal consulting was a major part of what we did. And we worked in all the different areas you can imagine, including the intelligence community. So variety of experiences and things. And we did both systems engineering and program management kinds of activities in our work, and we still do. It's an interesting mix between the two. Recently, PMI and INCOSE co-wrote a book together, realizing that there's like an 80% overlap. It's something we realized many years before that, but it was kind of interesting to see it finally codified in a book by those two organizations who are leaders in each area. So one of the things we found as we were using various tools out there is we had to use a lot of them to do all those different aspects of both program management and systems engineering. And of course, portfolio management's part of program management. And so when you think about it, you go, well, okay, how do I do this? How do I afford all these tools, which don't interoperate with each other? I have multiple databases I have to do all the configuration management on, and it's just painful. And so we ended up building Innoslate because we really found that was missing. We wanted one tight integrated package that was easy to use, easy to learn, easy to access, and of course, collaborative, very collaborative, which is why we went cloud. So scalability and collaboration was kind of pushed us towards the cloud environment. And so we're a very early adopter of cloud computing technology. We've also applied artificial intelligence technology in terms of the using natural language processing techniques and algorithms. So that's been very helpful for us. So again, we're helping systems engineers develop the full lifecycle solution for complex systems of systems and supporting all those phases of the life cycle, but the program management side of it is just as important to us. And in fact, systems engineering, I like to say we're optimizing cost, schedule, and performance for the system. And the program manager does that for the program. And of course, the portfolio manager is trying to do that across all the programs that are in their portfolio. So again, it's similar kinds of activities and needs that you have. So what's portfolio management? So I go to the source. PMI has a great way to talk about portfolio management, and this is their definition of it. And I think that I highlighted the part I thought was most important. It's centralized management of one or more project portfolios to achieve strategic objectives. So we're not just doing portfolios for the heck of it. There's kind of some kind of strategic objective behind the different pieces of the puzzle that you're putting together. And so that's a key thing to keep in mind as we're doing this. So is that giving that bridge, as they say, between strategy and implementation. So how do we bridge that gap? Now, really, this is often called project portfolio management, because really, when people talk about portfolio management, the first thing you think about is your stock portfolio. And so that's more investment portfolio management. So that's obviously not what we're talking about here. So I like to keep that very clear. But the definition above kind of leaves us with a lot of questions. How do we know when we've achieved the strategic objectives? What information is needed to be captured and curated in each project portfolio to make key decisions? Because we're doing this to try to make decisions, and particularly making sure that the programs are heading to the path to that strategic objective we're trying to achieve. And then how can we know what's going on in each project and how those affect each other? So we need to know the relationships between the projects. And so that fundamentally means I've got to collect the right information. And I've got to then relate that information to see what the impacts are for making decisions. And I need to capture the decisions as well. So fundamentally, I need some kind of ontology to do that. That's how we capture information and relate it to each other, right? So again, that's something we've been doing in model-based systems engineering for decades. This is not a new concept or idea. And so we call it model-based systems engineering. Seems like a new buzzword, but fundamentally that's what we've been doing as long as you've been using modeling tools to do this, and I have for well over 30 years now. So one of the things that we said, well, let's look at the MBSE ontology that might help us with the project portfolio management, which we think is the Lifecycle Modeling Language. And if you're not familiar with the Lifecycle Modeling Language, I'm going to give you a very quick, brief overview. I'm not going to delve into it very deep, but at least I'll give you kind of that top level to say why is it good for this. So first of all, LML is an open source standard. It's managed by a not-for-profit group called the Lifecycle Modeling Organization. It is not a proprietary standard in any way, shape, or form. And so LML has 12 simple primary classes and 8 defined subclasses of information. There can be extensions to that very easily if you want to. And as you need to for what you need to do, you will be extending it likely. So the idea is that this is our 80% solution, is kind of our bottom line with LML. So it only mandates 3 diagram types, because you can't diagram your way out of the problem. It's too much information. Everybody wants to see the information in different ways, and we think you should. We think you should be able to visualize that data any way you need to communicate to other people. And so follow those standards for those standard diagrams. For example, if I'm doing a Gantt chart for a timeline diagram, well, that's a great form, and most people know what that means, and it has certain rules that go with it. So all you have to do is follow those rules and be able to visualize the information as you want to. Basically, the standard has been kind of hovering at version 1.1 when we added the extensions for SysML back in 2014. And I'm a member of this group, and I'm very involved with it as well, by the way, in full disclosure. So it is something we developed because we saw that need for this kind of language for, again, program management and systems engineering. So we haven't made any modifications to the specification, because what we've been doing is doing a lot of research, understanding it, applying it, seeing how the ontology works with other things. And so we hope to be actually taking some of that results of that research that we've done and now codifying it some additional enhancements in this next year. Also, we're tracking the SysML 2.0 development, and we're going to make sure that the LML spec it stays up with that. So LML overview, basically, if you think about it, there's a set of nouns that we have in our language, which we call classes. And that's the bins of information we're storing things in, okay? And we group them in terms of models. So there's like a documentation model with artifacts and statements and requirements. There's a functional model with actions and inputs, outputs. Physical model with assets, resources, and conduits. And then there's that parametric and program model. If you look in there, there's a lot of the kinds of things you really care about for portfolio management. I want to capture decisions. I want to capture cost. I'm worried about risk. Time's very important because that's schedule. A location is very important to me. I want to know where things are. I've got to keep track of things geospatially. And characteristics and measures are my metrics. So that's where I'm going to capture things like those goals, those objectives that I'm looking for, particularly if I can quantify them in a way that they can be measured and then verified. So that's very key to the language. Those are our nouns, okay? Well, the connections between those, which are the relationships, that's that bottom right table, that shows you that everything's connected to everything, okay? At least in one way. And in fact, we've extended way beyond that, particularly for SysML. We added quite a bit more relationships as we tied it all together. So those are our verbs of our language. Now we can have attributes on the classes, okay? Those are our adjectives. And then we have attributes on the relationships, and those are our adverbs. So we have a very, very robust language, actually. It seems simple from the basic set of classes, the bins of information. But once you tie it all together that way, you've got a very, very robust language, and but it's still structured and still fairly easy to get your head wrapped around it and work with it. On the diagram side, we said, well, you know, we want just 3 basic diagrams. We need a functional model, which is or behavioral model, which is the action diagram, and then we want a physical model, which is our asset diagram. And then we need to make sure we capture traceability. We need to know how these classes are related to one another, be able to visualize that. And that's what the spider diagram does for us. So that gives us all that. Now, what's nice is we've mapped this to all kinds of other languages and frameworks. And perhaps particularly most importantly is we've looked at how it ties in with something like BPMN. Now, for program management, a lot of program managers still use BPMN. It's a fairly complex symbolic language. People find that they like it a lot, but it also is overly complex, and a lot of people will get lost in that complexity of just that. And remember, that's just the diagramming side of that. The modeling of your business processes is what that's for. So just by the name, it's obvious, right? so we actually do all that in the action diagram. But the nice thing is the action diagram is constrained by the physical model. So the asset diagram actually provides constraints for that action diagram. So when we actually simulate it, which is what you have to do, because there's modeling and simulation, and you need both, because the simulation verifies that the model works. And out of it, you can derive timing information, you can roll up your costs, you can look at all kinds of other parameters and how they fit together, and resource constraints, things like that. So all those things are dynamic and need to be captured as well. Again, so this language is robust enough to do all of that. And again, I can do that programmatically, or I can do that technically on the systems engineering side. So again, I have both phases of that, and I need both of those. Okay. So LML, just in a nutshell, gives me that fundamental foundation for both systems engineering and program management. It gives me those technical and programmatic classes I need for the life cycle. Again, I can extend those as I need to. Action diagram gives us that really nice, simple way to look at that behavioral model and understand what's going on in it easily, that nobody has to be an expert in it. You can see it. When it says the word "and," that means, okay, that means those are going together, right? Well, I'm sorry, or it shows that you're going one path or the other, right? It's exclusive or. The sync point brings the different parallel activities together. The loop gives you my looping action. So these are all the ways to capture that information and work with it. In the asset diagram, there's all kinds of ideas about cloning and things like that, so you don't have to duplicate information. So again, there's a lot of reuses as you get through these as well. But again, I gotta say, it's an 80% solution. We think you're always going to want to be adding other classes or subclasses of information. For one of the things we did for V&V, and we're hoping to add this in a spec here very soon, update, is the test case idea, this idea of capturing your test cases so you can do your verification validation. So the question is, where is LML implemented best today? Well, right now it's in Innoslate. I mean, other tools can use LML. It's fairly easy to do. Anything that's a schema independent tool, in other words, one that you can add in the schema or change the schema to map and use this LML structure, it's pretty much the same thing. The only thing that that probably would be unique, that would be needed to be added to other tools, is the action diagram. But again, you have the functional equivalent. It's just that you're kind of overwhelmed by the symbology usually that are in those other diagrams. But that's okay. It's there. But let's talk about Innoslate for portfolio management. So first of all, we look at the whole life cycle as we're doing this. If I'm doing portfolio management, oftentimes it's an acquisition portfolio I'm managing. So I'm going to track through that process. So I often start with my documentation. Oftentimes, particularly at the portfolio level, I'm dealing with very high level policy kind of documents and working with those. And so you start there and you go down as you need to and working through it. Then you're going to get to have requirements documents. So those are a special type of document. We have a special view for requirements because that brings in our NLP quality checker and the resulting quality score. And so that gives us a very powerful way to analyze the requirements, not just manage them. Modeling, we have, I think we're up to 26 or more diagram types. We have quite a number of chart types coming in this next release as well, in addition to the ones we have. So we're adding things all the time with this. We do dive into the whole digital engineering domain a little bit with the CAD viewer. That gives us a link to taking the CAD results and looking at them at the higher level. So again, if I'm tracking my mechanical engineering design, I can tie that in and look at it, work with it, and curate the information. Again, I'm not trying to be a CAD tool here. We've got wonderful CAD tools. This is just a viewer to be able to say, and then be able to tie it together with other things that are in my database at the program and systems level. And then, of course, simulation. That we have discrete event and Monte Carlo simulation built into the tool. Those do work with cost, schedule, and performance factors. So you can do a very full modeling of the activity. And believe me, if you don't have Monte Carlo, you need it. You always should be using Monte Carlo because we don't know almost any number precisely, particularly early in a project. You're guessing. And you need to understand the range of possibilities so you can get a feeling for your risk, particularly in terms of cost and schedule on the programmatic side, that you're very worried about those risks, and they're real. And if all you do is do the optimum path or what your best guess is, you won't be prepared for when things go well or when things go worse. And of course, our test center is the ability to capture your test expected results, your actual results, and status tracking. And that's very important because even early in the life cycle, we should be defining how is it that you're going to have it approved? How do you know success? How do I know I've achieved my objectives? I need tests to tell me that. And again, I use the word test as a general term for verification technique or validation technique. Okay, so again, you can test it is a broader term. It's just verification gets to be too big to put on things, so it gets overwhelming if you do it otherwise. If you don't use the word test, so we mean test as the generic idea of V&V. Okay, on the programmatic side, risk analysis, very important to be able to do your risk analysis, timeline analysis, and of course cost analysis. On the operations end of things, we're just adding a new tool. It's coming out in September, a week after we release to the cloud. for the Innoslate 4.5 release, we're going to introduce you to Sopatra. And Sopatra is a way to look at your operational processes, model and simulate them, particularly Monte Carlo, to determine whether you have a good chance of the process working in the time you have available to operate before something goes bad. And it helps you look at that as part of your activity. So again, this can be used in the operational side of the world, or as you're designing, you can use the same approach to have a better understanding of the design as well. So this actually is useful across the life cycle too. Okay, again, I mentioned briefly digital engineering. We've done a lot more deep dive into the digital engineering world, tying together different tools, looking how to bring them together, when to bring them together. That's a lot of it. One of the things that you have to be a little careful of is when you're trying to co-simulate. And you see a lot of this whole digital engineering, digital twin push is about co-simulation is what they're really talking about. Well, that makes sense to a certain extent, but you're going to run into computer resources and limitations very fast if you're not very careful. So one of the reasons we've always abstracted our models is, well, for two reasons. One is we can't actually compute a detailed, high fidelity, physics-based simulation with the higher level programmatic to campaign level kinds of simulations that people want to do in this portfolio program management world. Okay, so it's just too much data. It overwhelms the computer. But the other part of it, it overwhelms the human. We abstract things because we really want to understand, what's going on. We're trying to understand and control the activities well enough that we can make it go in the direction we need it to go. Again, back to that achieving those strategic objectives is always the focus of it. So we've really looked very hard at how to do this, and we think we've got some good solutions for it. We've been focused heavily on COTS tools so that anybody can go and get them and use them and buy them and have a complete package. We've even explored some of the new technologies like HoloLens. That's a very interesting technology. Mixed reality technologies have potential applications here. So again, that's something we're doing basic research in through some government contracts, actually. Also, one of the things that enables this capability in the tool is the fact that we do use modular open systems approach in our architecture for our software. And so the bottom layer is your SQL Server kind of layer. It doesn't have to be Microsoft SQL Server. We also use Postgres, O2, a couple other SQL databases. And of course, we probably can extend it beyond that if it looks like there's other databases that seem to be appropriate people want. But vast majority of people are using SQL Server. Seem like the right thing to do. The Innoslate core is the Java core, and what that does is give us the manipulation of the database to create tables that you need for the information, to store information, retrieve the information, things like that, while using the different ways of what's there, but enhancing it, and particularly creating things like the classes of information or extending those classes easily. So that's what the Java core does. Then going through the REST API, we go to the plugin on the right. You'll see that plugin is a plugin for Innoslate itself. What that is, we call it a plugin. It's really the JavaScript side of the tool. So with a cloud computing environment, you need to have a lot of interactivity. If you want interactivity with the model, you're going to be wanting to use it in the browser because that's where you have it locally. If you have to move a lot of data back and forth between you and the cloud, you're going to see a lot of latency, right? Because that's the difference with cloud computing. So I got a strong back end. I can go off to do, various high fidelity things at the back end if I want. I can spin off things. We're looking to maybe even add a simulator for the back end as well. So we could spin off simulations and do more batching of simulations. So things like that in the long term is probably where we will go with that. But right now that we have that plugin, what's nice about that is if you get the enterprise version of the tool, you can create your own plugin. So if you want to see different subsets of it, things like that, that's a way to plug into it. Sopatra is essentially another plugin. I think that's a best way to look at it. By the way, again, we don't use plugins in general. We don't sell separately. This is all one thing. So again, if you want to create your own separately on it, that's feasible. What's nice is, of course, we have single sign-on and LDAP and a lot of stuff we do on the government side. But ultimately, what people are concerned about is they don't want to have data lock, right? You don't want your data to go into a binary database where you can't easily get it out and use it. You always have access if you need to go to the SQL Server directly level, the SQL level directly, and work with it if you need to. Okay? But we have lots of APIs to help you gather data. We highly recommend, if you are going to use that, use the tool as much as you can, because it's going to help you do things better. Okay, so one of the things that's really important in Innoslate for portfolio management is Manage Projects view. So when you have a portfolio, you have a set of projects. And so what we do is have folders, and you'd set up your set of projects you care about, you're worried about for that portfolio, and then you set it up this way. So for this example is kind of a notional example of where I have a master project, which is going to home the summation of the information. I'm going to bring information from these other projects into it, and I'll talk about that in a second. But this gives you the ability then to manage the data by creating these folders and organizing the information. And of course, you can rename it, you can fork it. In fact, soon we're going to have branching as well coming in. So that's so branching and forking together. You download XML or .ino format. The .ino format is XML plus anything you've uploaded, like a document. You can store documents, right? We can manage documents, and then you can also upload pictures. And so those are all stored in a zip format for you in the .ino is a zip format. And of course, you can delete the project. Of course, you have to have a higher level privilege to do that. You have to be an owner of the project to be able to delete it. Or if you're, in my case, I'm actually the organization administrator for this organization, so I have access to all of them. With great power comes great responsibility, right? Stan Lee. Okay, so what enables this to work is this cross-project relationships, which means that I can create that master project, and then I can relate it through these other projects and create this bigger picture. So if you look, when I selected the show the cross-project indicators, and what that means is that the dashed lines around each of those milestones in this chart basically are from a different project. They don't belong, they aren't directly in this project, but I can see them, I can work with them, I can interact with them, I can change them if I need to. Okay, so I have full access to that information here. And so that way I can see the bigger picture. And yet to have people still working their own programs, doing the detailed work, and only see the pieces that I really care about from a portfolio point of view. That makes it very easy. And you see I've selected a particular one, and it shows you, yes, that's across project entities. So even if I hadn't put on the indicators, because I can get rid of those dashed lines, because sometimes you don't want that, it's too busy a picture, or you want to go to something output that you want to have with it, then you would take that away. So anyway, so that's a good part of this. Coming soon, 4.5 is just around the corner. I mean, we're a few weeks away from actually releasing it. So we know it's in good shape. It's about ready to be, we're just doing final testing is where we are right now. So you see some of the features here to the right. There's a Kanban board. We have a dashboard now. It's the program management dashboard, which includes a calendar. The calendar is a separate app as well, so it has another view as well. You can go into that in more detail. It shows you your upcoming dates. Again, below it is a hierarchy chart. You can put hierarchy charts in there, progress charts on your boards, so tracking your progress and see where you are there. So got a lot of interesting stuff to help you manage overall your projects. And of course, in that part, can include the portfolio, right? Because I can add in the cross-project things here too, and see and visualize them and understand them and work with them as well. Another thing that's going to come in here very soon that you're going to be interested in is the hierarchy chart is going to be able to show labels and attributes. That's going to be very valuable for you to do like a utility analysis and things like that. So that, again, that's something that can help you with that whole, working to that, achieving those strategic objectives. Again, September 7th is when we're expecting to have this out. We expect to have Sopatra out on the 14th, and an enterprise version will be out on the 21st. So kind of that normal schedule we try to follow. 2 weeks after we release to the cloud, we release to enterprise. Another little thing, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I know I want to give some time to look at the tool with some of these features and talk about it, and then give you plenty of time for Q&A. So in here, one of the things that hit us, that we found out recently, was the whole National Defense Authorization Act. It had a section 836. And in there, it's about digital modernization of analytic and decision support processes for managing and overseeing the DoD acquisitions programs, okay? And that includes not only digital data management and analytic capabilities, but also portfolio management. So I thought that might be of interest to you. Now, you go, well, that first part, do I care about if I'm worried about portfolio management? Yes, I do, because that's what the projects in the portfolio are going to contain, is this digital data management and analytics. Those are what you're going to want to then bring up to a higher level and understand better. So I'll just briefly go through some of those slides and then spend a little bit more time on the portfolio management slide. So what we did was we actually took each paragraph out of there and talked to, well, here's how LML and Innoslate support those activities. And so as you read through this, and I believe that we're posting the slides, so you should be able to get those, no problem, or they can be emailed to you if we don't post them. Anyway, so this kind of shows you some of the key things that we found with it, that we're able to show with it. And similarly here, this gets more into the management side of things. We're looking at Kanban boards. We're looking to do an enhanced EVMS in the future. That's actually something, there's some research going on at George Mason University that is very, very promising. And so we're looking to implement that. That will be in the later version, not version 4.5. And then again, importing data, be able to work with it and use the information again. Again, here, even though this was the section on data analytics, right? They brought in portfolio management of acquisition programs. So again, it's all wrapped together. Some more requirements here: accessible and usable by individuals. And of course, we have a lot of access in the DoD community and also DOE, and a number of other places have picked it up and used it and have set up their own environments. Also, there's let's see, so develop, use, curate, and maintain the original form in real-time digital systems. Again, we have a lot of ways we can do that. We can interact with real-time systems, particularly anything that's a cloud-based kind of resource. As things are going to be more and more that way, you can interact with them directly, including in our simulators. Through data management and sharing processes. Again, this is a key part, I think, of what we do very nicely. We have a lot of built-in configuration management features in the tool that help you with that. It's a single database, so you're not worrying about synchronizing databases, which is a huge problem. So again, that's a very helpful thing. By the way, when you use a lot of suites of tools, be careful, because in fact, they very often have multiple databases. And so you do get into that problem. I've done it myself personally, and it's really painful to deal with that configuration management problem. And again, quality, transparent, actionable analyses. So again, that dashboards and things like that. We have some enhancements we're planning for dashboards in version 4.6 as well. So even though that's supposed to be mostly a bug release, we've got some enhancements planned for that. And then analytic models and simulation. Again, discrete event simulation, Monte Carlo are critical. I actually look at the discrete event now as the debugger for my Monte Carlo. So some other tools. Boy, this went on and on, didn't it? Again, I think you can read this, and I'm not going to belabor this stuff. Let's see if we get to the portfolio management here run quickly, and then get to the other things here. Boy, that just goes on. Okay, so portfolio management, finally. Okay, so establish capabilities for robust, effective, and data-driven portfolio management. Of course, a lot of this is going to be, we already do a lot of this internal to Innoslate as it is, but 4.5 is just going to add so many more features in this area. It's tremendous, so we're very excited about it. As I said, the additional views can be developed upon request. So if somebody decides that they need to have something else, and of course, we're always very responsive to user inputs. So we do have that feature request dashboard widget. And of course, you can contact us directly or, talk to our support people. They'd be glad to take your thoughts and ideas of how to improve the tool. So enhancements, we've got some enhancements to the simulators that are coming in that should help as well, by the way. So you're going to see that with this 4.5 release. And then again, the enhancer and value management work we're doing with George Mason University is really going to be in the future release. Okay, so got through the slides, and so let's get to actually see the tool a little bit. So let's talk a little bit. So oftentimes you're going to be using Innoslate, and you're in the middle of working with it, and here it is, and I've got the organization dashboard here up. And as the organization admin, and you see that I'm in the admin dashboard access, so I'm the admin for this organization, and so I see all the projects in it. Well, frankly, that's pretty overwhelming. If you're having to deal with that, it's for this level, it's very hard. I mean, I'm pretty lucky that some of my hot demos and things I use are right at the top, so that's kind of good. But if I really want to organize the information, I go over to Manage Projects. So I click over here at the little folder icon and go to Manage Projects. And that takes me into Manage Projects view. And I showed you that on a slide before. But what this does is let me filter information by a variety of ways. First of all, I can just look at what I own. That's helpful. Or just what's shared with me. Active projects. Not sure what active projects means, but it's there. Okay, cool. And then of course owned by me. So those are different ways to filter, or also folders. So if I want to select my portfolio that I care about, here's my portfolio, and it has the different ones. It's organized and defaults to order by project number. But if I want to, I can simply click this and I can order it by the name. And so that gives me maybe a little bit more of a view I want to see it in. Again, the edit here, edits, so you can edit information about it. You can change the folder it's in. You can change the description of it, the name. There are some advanced options as well, and that's some things about auto-managed labels and action diagrams, and those are some nuances that you may or may not be interested in. So here I am, I've got these different things, these different projects. Now I've got my labor pool in a separate project, and the reason for that is my cost of the labor pool is in there. And I don't want everybody who's in project ABC to know about it. So I'm going to keep that as a separate project, and that's a typical thing I would do with this. So my master project, let's go to that. And the master project, if I look at, then here's a summary dashboard. I don't have a lot of widgets set up for this one. So it's, again, there's not a lot of data in it at the moment. So this is kind of early. As I build over time, I'm going to add my widgets. So I'd add a bar chart maybe. And then what classes am I interested in? And let's see, maybe I have assets as well. Let's just put those in there for fun. And then I get a bar chart. And so again, right now I don't have any assets. So all I have is actions. So that's what I would see. So again, it's very easy to add the widgets. We've actually got some new ones coming in the program management view that are special for it. So that I'm going to talk about that next webinar. So you'll get to see more of that in detail. But again, here's that feedback form. If you don't see something you need in here, just ask for it. You'd be surprised how fast we turn around new ideas, and we do take inputs from users and turn them into. Sometimes people ask me for things like, oh gee, I want to look like how I do this in PowerPoint. Okay, if we can figure a way to use the ontology to generate it, then we will do that. And we've done that now for several different viewpoints, for actual diagram types. So add them as we need. Another thing that's very useful for you is this whole activity feed. As a manager, you can track who's done what when did they work with it last, You can filter it by individuals or types of things. This is also if you accidentally delete something, it shows up here with a restore button. So again, this really helps you with a lot of your management, your configuration management of things. There's also a comments feed. That's not showing here, but if I have comments in this one, and I don't think I've got any in this particular one. Oh, and by the way, since I'm the project owner, I can always click that preference too. So that way everybody sees it. So again, I don't have any comments at the moment, but that's okay. Again, you can move these around as you need to visualize how you want to. And every other project owner can do the same thing with it, right? They can, or project user can actually change and add their own as they need to. So if I look at my database here, let me go to that. I don't have a lot of things in my database. This is all I have. And of course, I could spell schedule better. There we go. Okay, good. And so, so we say, okay, well, gosh, there's not much here, but what it is I've tied these things, this integrated master schedule. If I open the entity view for it, I have lots of these tasks that are in here. Now, these are coming from the other projects. So there's project A, project B, project C. And you note by this little cross-project indicator, the little arrows here, the purple arrows, that's indicating I've got a cross-project view. So if I want to see the timeline of this diagram, and I know I have one here, there we go. That's my timeline diagram. So, wow, okay, so it went to that other project, project A, and added in all the subtasks of it. So here they are. So all I had to do was link to this one, and that's the one. If I go to the relationships, I see that's decomposes the integrated master schedule. So all I had to do was do that. And the way I add something, if you want to add an existing, you go to the existing from another project, you come over to this little wheel and select the project you want to pull from. And again, you can search for those projects. So if I say project ABC, there they are. So that I can add them in as I need to. So that's where I go and get that information. Okay, so again, very easy, top level type of thing. Again, if I want to visually see that they're cross-project ones, I would come over here and show cross-project indicators. That gives you that other view we looked at earlier. And you can click on it and see it's a cross-project entity. Okay, so again, this is way you can start building up. So you have people go off and build their own projects within your organizational sandbox. You then have access to those projects and can build this bigger picture for your portfolio. Okay, and then I'm just showing you timing information. You can bring anything you need, other metrics, risks, anything you want to tie together and look at from those different projects can be brought in this way. So it's very easy to set up exactly the environment you're looking for and the way you want to see it and work with it. Also, of course, we have documents view. If you have any policy documents, things like that, you might put them here that are governing what you're doing. So again, at that portfolio management level, you'd have that. Other diagram types you can add. And by the way, they will come in with a redacted picture. And redacted is there to remind you that you have a cross-project relationship. Not everybody who has access to this project will have access to that other project. And so you may want to hide certain things from certain people, but let them see that bigger picture in general. You, of course, would have total access to it. So you have the total timeline picture. We can look at other action diagrams. So this is actually also an action diagram, and I can look at its decomposition. So again, these are cross-project entities. They're in that project A. They're not in this master project, but I can still see them. I can simulate them. I can do all the things I need to do to look at the process model. If I want to see the relationships as well, come up, that diagram is here. So here's all those relationships and how they're connected to each other. And again, cross projects. Okay, so this is very powerful to tie this stuff together, this information together, so you can work with it as you need to. Everything moves around, everything's live. You can make relationships, new relationships here by adding new things in. So you can do all kinds of things. Okay, so that's kind of in a nutshell, the main aspects of it. I'm sure there's lots of questions. So let me throw the questions open back to here. And yeah, sorry, I guess we're doing Q&A first here.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Steve. We actually have a couple questions already. If you haven't done so, there's a panel on the right that's labeled questions. Go ahead and use that to ask us your questions. Steve, are you ready for the first question?
Sure.
Is there a documented API to extend either LML or Innoslate to meet my needs, or do we have to go back to Spec Innovations for changes?
So right now for LML, we don't have those documented APIs. But we are going to try to see if we can't do that in a future standard. So that is something we're looking at. How can we do that? We're looking at other people who are doing that, particularly the SysML group and some other groups. There's a group out at INL that's doing some work in that area that's very interesting. So we're kind of looking at those different possibilities with it. So yeah, I hope so. But right now ours are open APIs, so they're well documented for an application programmer. So.
Thanks, Steve. Our next question is, are we able to see how one project is sharing data elements? For example, if a set of requirements is being used across multiple projects, would that be something we would see in the dashboard view?
You could see that to a certain extent. I think that there's a query we have that would allow that to, so is cross-project. And so you could show that and make that as like in one of the tables or things like that, has the ability to put queries in it. So that would certainly be one way. The other is as you are looking at the different objects, you will see what are connected to each other, and you'll see those cross-project things. So you would be able to see it that way. If we don't have exactly what you're looking for, though, I'd be very interested in seeing what you're looking for and see if we can add it in a future release.
Thanks, Steve. Our next question is, since everything is live, how does one strike a baseline?
So okay, we actually have a baselining tool in it. So there's a couple ways to baseline. First of all, if you actually have a document, there's a baselining capability there. Test Center has test cycles for that purpose. But if you really want to baseline the whole database, the best way to do that is export it and create a baseline that way. That way you always make it or fork it to say, I've got a branch here, and I'm gonna or a fork I'm gonna go create for this, and that can be my new baseline. So again, those are the best ways we know to do that right now.
Your next question is, so if a project A technical performance metric that influences a project B task, this will show up in the cross-project diagram, ?
Yes, it will. Yeah, that's the whole idea. So if it's just like anything else, any other class of information, as long as I can make the relationship, I can then see it in the master project.
How are permissions managed within Innoslate?
So permissions are set up in a very simple way, actually. Let me go to one of my projects here. Let's just go to any of them. Let's grab one. So you have the different roles are set up, and the owner then determines what roles they share with. So if anybody in my organization I want to share with, if I want to share with Bobby here, as a viewer, I could, or collaborator, I can do that and share it with them that way. That's the easy way to do that. Now, if you want to extend those roles, I go to my admin dashboard, I have the ability to do teams and roles. So I can add roles if I need to here. Let me click over into the owner role and show you the different parameters. So here's what an owner can do. They can do read, write, modify the schema, create baselines, create test cycles, share, force unlock, review. So if I decide I want to have maybe a tester and I want them to be the only ones who can create test cycles besides the owner. That would be something I would consider. So for example, I believe a collaborator cannot create baselines or test cycles. So again, I might have my configuration manager be the person who does the baselines. So those kinds of things. Did that answer the question?
I think so. We have one more question. This is about the update. When will 4.5 be available on Enterprise?
Yeah, I believe Enterprise should be the 21st of September. That's what we're shooting for. So I think we're right on target for that.
Thanks, Dave. I think that's about all the questions we've received so far. If anyone has any additional questions, you can, of course, reach out to us after the webinar. Couple more announcements. We hope you can join us for our next webinar. We'll be previewing a brand new product that we've already talked a little bit about, Zapatra, a digital assistant for standard operating procedures. You won't want to miss that one. We'll also be announcing a major update with Innoslate. Steve already briefly mentioned 4.5. This update will have a whole new dashboard for project management. So we hope you can come out to this special webinar and bring your questions for us. We would like to thank you again for joining us today. As a reminder, we will be following up with you soon to send you a link to the recording and the presentation slide deck. Again, we hope that you can join us for that webinar. It's on September 8th at 2:00 p.m. We also encourage you to visit our website and our blog, as well as connect with us on social media. Thank you again for your attendance, and we hope to see you again at our next webinar.